Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. And the reason I'm a little bit discombobulated there is because Bruce was just discussing Louis Ring, and quite a conversation it was too. It's just, no, was it lights? Lights we were talking about, wasn't it? I think it was lights. Hello, wherever you might be in the world. I hope you're well. I hope the COVID situation's going well for you, however it might be. Well, where to start? Where there's so many topics this week, largely based. Well, I know the first thing. What size drone hit your head there, Bruce?
It was a very small one. No, actually, I've just Parkinson's. I keep falling over at the moment. It's a bit disconcerting. I'm covered in bruises, getting discombobulated, but it'll come right. It'll be good.
Evening to you, Mac. There, I've gone to our comments, and if you've come to, I don't know if those comments that I put in earlier are there from earlier. The one I put in about the FAA moving forward to enable safe integration of drones. I am surprised that the market has not kicked up more about that, because, in fact, let's do the unusual thing of sharing a screen. Let's go for Chrome tab, and let's look at this one, for instance. So this one is for the 3DR H520G. Now, I don't know how long have they been making those in America, 3DR? Anyone know?
I think it's going to be about since about 2024, Gary. Because as far as I'm aware, it isn't, is it?
No, I don't think it is it? That's a unique thing, isn't it? But that's the golden ticket for 3DR, and they're joined by several other companies. Let me stop sharing now. Basically, another 10 companies are getting a different golden ticket. We've already had the golden ticket, which is, or was, and still is, Blue, SUAS. And now the FAA is putting out golden tickets for, different to the military, of course.
So is this the silver ticket then? Would we say it's the silver ticket, the golden ticket?
No,
this has got to be a next level down, isn't it?
I really think it's based on that loophole that they left on the blue ticket thing about using PX4. I think that's the way that they might manage to get new vehicles under the rug.
Well, hang on. Let's share another tab again then, and let's try and unpack that belief then. Let's share this one here, and well, there's the companies. Look, 3D Robotics. So yeah, that's PX4 on that one. Air Robotics, is that PX? That's that Israeli drone in a box, isn't it? Is that PX4?
Come on, PX4 is open source. You just have to say you use it.
Oh, fair enough. Matanet probably is. And Percepto today teamed up with the Robot Dog people. Telegrid, that looks like some sort of knock-together delivery thing. Wingcopter and Zipline. So they're basically, most of those people are in the delivery business. But I can see it beginning to turn that it's only certain platforms will be allowed, and I can see it being very soon that there'll be a golden list to be on, and that's that. And I don't know, maybe I must be wrong, and that's why no one's kicking up. But I'm surprised that the market hasn't reacted. There was no three-lettered Chinese company on that list, was there?
Well, there's no Autel, there's no Parrot are already on the big one, which we mentioned earlier. They're already on the upper list, but there's no Autel, there's no FreeFly. There's no FreeFly Systems there. You know, they're a big US manufacturer. Why aren't they there?
Because perhaps they didn't want to, because they have their own markets. They don't want to go through the hassle of going to the federals. So who knows?
That's a bit short-sighted, though, isn't it, Louis? Because if the federals say you have to have this, then that's you out.
I don't know. I really don't know. Yes, it sounds strange that FreeFly, which is perhaps the largest manufacturer of drones, of the largest drones in US, is not on the list. I said so before on when the first list came up, and I don't know. I think with the golden ticket of the PX4, they might get in on the list anytime they want.
But this list, of course, the blue SUS wasn't going to suit all because it was definitely going to be a small craft. It wasn't going to be a big machine. So perhaps they just aren't interested in manufacturing that size of machine. But there's definitely moving around of the furniture occurring that an eye has to be kept on. That's my take on it anyway.
They don't have small vehicles, so that's one of the things. The smallest they have is that new quadcopter one.
Yeah,
that came up to fight the M300s.
Yeah, and I calling that small is you can't even calling that.
Come on, Ian. My daily driver is the M210 M300s, so that's small for me.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? That, you know, because let's be honest, Freefly are one of the more interesting companies at the moment. Funny enough, they're doing tweets this week of their new camera that is shipping, which still seems a bit strange that they're making a camera, but it's not really a drone camera; it's a high-speed camera. But yeah, it's a weird old situation overall, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of things happening, and then you seem to have all of the big players, and when I mean big players, I mean what we would consider the consumer market big players, DJI, Autel, doing nothing. And the interesting thing, when you look at that first list, that you could argue that first list is a list of vaporware, because none of those products actually exist yet, as far as I'm aware.
Sorry. I think at least one of them exists.
One of them exists. Okay, one of them exists. Let's be fair. One of them exists. One of them definitely exists.
Yes.
Two of them potentially very soon, I think. But how many on that list there are out and out ready to ship today? Okay, we know the site scan with 3DR is, but it's not their product. It's a fact. The term to use in the industry would be it's a factored product. It's made by Unique. It's the H5 factored. It's an outsourced product. So they've bought it in. It's using the H520 from Unique with a custom set of PX4 firmware, because the H520 did use PX4. But
remember, there's no blue quote unquote requirement in this mix. It's not a security requirement. So you would think a 3-lettered Chinese brand would manage to get into that list now that there is no requirement. Oh, I know. I'll drop this in and you guys will know about it. CE markings. Where are we other than China export on DJI stuff for the for next year and when it all comes into place? Am I still right in thinking there's nothing's got it?
No, not one aircraft from each manufacturer.
No, they're still on the AliExpress buy now list.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, the last I checked, the standard still was not fully agreed. The actual standard, there was still a lot in the air on all of this, because remember, all of this comes as part of that regulation package that comes into force at the end of this year. So whilst there is a standard, which is an ASTM standard, it doesn't officially come into force until the 31st of December. So I think anyone even making it now would be into hot water, because something could change. It's not ratified, it's not in law until the end of the year. And even then, I'm not convinced. You might see something like the Mavic or the Mini 2 or the Mini 3. I think if someone was going to dip their feet into the seawater, you would do it with a smaller aircraft, which is far easier to comply with. And the Mini 2 could comply today very easily. It literally, there's nothing they'd really need to change on it. It would just mean certify and go through. So maybe you might see that middle of next year. Maybe.
Yeah, and there was talk that DJI trying to get current aircraft certified, but again, until we know exactly what's what, and they will say that there'll be no current aircraft they would allow, but DJI look like they've been pushing.
See, I'm not convinced they'll even try on that. I think that's I don't know where that info came from. Obviously, I know you said about it before, Mark. I'm not convinced it's in DJI's interest to certify any existing aircraft. Let's look
I
at this
agree
one.
with you. Yeah, it's about money. It's you know, you're going to bring out the Mavic 3 Pro with that firmware mod, even at the most basic thing, to make more money.
They did mind back certify. They have done that before. They did it with the Canadian regs. So when the Canadian requirements kicked in, the Inspire 1, the Inspire 2, the Phantom 4 Pro, you know, when there was that requirement, I can't remember what it was, but they had to get it done.
But then that was like getting on a list.
Yes.
Like the FAA now has a list. So that wasn't quite this into getting involved and getting a CE marking, whether it goes through like a British standards process or whether it is just a bureaucrat rubber stamping this has got a CE mark.
Well, in theory, it should. In theory, getting the CE mark should be no different to the aircraft getting its FCE regulation for radio. In fact, the chances are it will be exactly the same people doing it, the same organizations doing it. It will just be another set of tests the aircraft has to comply with. Because obviously, remember, all aircraft have to go through the CE certification, and that's all handled by a third party. You just send your product to them, they go yes, no, and then the documents published, and that's it. So really, it shouldn't be that difficult to do as long as the aircraft complies.
Guys, we are forgetting all the business side of it. I'm sure that DJI will be pleased to sell you a brand new DJI Mini 2 with markings that cost
the Mini 2 CE Black Edition Ultra EU.
Yes. and everybody will be very happy and will sell their old Mini 2s that they bought just now and received just now in 3 months, just to get one of the new ones that are compliant.
And what's interesting though, so they're only talking about like the C2 subcategory right now in the open category, but it's quite clear that in CAP 722 they're going to lay it out for the specific category at some point. Just that they've not sorted out the other stuff yet, but you can see clearly the way it's written. At some point, you know, if you want to fly an M300 eventually, it will have a C mark. There'll be an M400, of course, with new batteries and everything, of course. That will come out eventually, and that might be in 5 years' time, maybe, or 4 years' time. But eventually, it will come to the next category up. Eventually.
Well, you've got to take into account as well. There's very few aircraft that have been made that will fall into these categories in recent years. You know, if you look at what DJI, for instance, have released in recent times, it's the last 3 aircraft DJI have released have been small ones. We haven't actually had a medium or large aircraft for over 2 years.
There's the big
other than the enterprise, other than the enterprise market. But if you take it, it was the Mavic Air 2, the Mavic Mini, the Mavic Air 2, then the Mavic Mini 2. The Mavic Pro 2, or Mavic 2 Pro has been out for over 2 years. The Phantom 4 Pro has been out for close to 4.5. The Inspire 2 is 4 years old. So, everything is ripe for replacement right here with a nice new badge on the back of it. It's very good timing.
Do you still think that your Inspire 2 will get a follow-up, or has it been taken by the M300s?
I'm not convinced. It's funny. I've had some involvement with the team who built it, luckily, and there's some stuff I know about the aircraft. It was very much end of the line at one point. But my understanding is never say never, and it was on the long term. I don't see them walking away from the cine market.
You can do cine with the M300s.
You can. I just without the folding legs, it's not ideal. I think it's clear it's not priority. If it was priority, we'd have seen a revision by now.
We already mentioned the company that owns that market now. Does DJI? They don't own that market, do they?
I still think there's an awful lot of Inspires at the low end market. Low end.
And the thing is, DJI FreeFly owns the very top end where you carry those reflexes and all those stupidly expensive cameras, and the drones fly for 3 minutes or something. But DJI might have a surprise for that market, because let's not forget it, DJI also is a photographic company.
Yeah.
And they can come up with a hugely crazy camera, and we can see that from their gimbals. Come on, you put one of those crazy expensive cameras on their gimbals. It's feasible. So why not extend that to put those new cameras and develop your own camera? They did it with GoPro. Why cannot they do it with ARRI or Red or something?
Well,
the market is there.
Yeah, well, remember, they were involved in that. You know, the M600 was a very big play in that market, and you know that yes, it didn't behave very well with the Ronin 2.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know that, but you know, they were very much in it. I think it's clear. I think they made a mistake. If I look back, they put all of their eggs in enterprise. You go back 2 years, 2.5 years, their direction, or 3 years now, was enterprise. You had the M600 shifted from the Cine platform over to enterprise. If you actually look at the M600, it's listed as an enterprise product now, not a Cine product. They then produced the M200 and the M300. I don't know you know, it's obviously a marketing thing, or someone thought the world, it's all about inspection. It's all about industrial. You know, if you look at the events, they're massive events for these aircraft releases. And Cine just got dumped. Cine just got thrown to the side. And I think they're beginning to suffer for that now, because what's happening obviously is they're being pushed out of that enterprise market, as we're seeing with the Blue UAS and the governmental work. And I think their natural return is back to Cine, because there's nothing stopping them still getting a medium hole in that.
And now Sony is going to be there to compete with them.
Well, here's an interesting one. You know, you were saying about, you know, okay, we know Freefly are big. There's a guy who is very big in America. He's done very well. He's a bit of a controversial guy. I'm not going to name his name, but he owns quite a big drone company. Flies all sorts of big birds. And I remember him putting a post on Facebook one day. They were filming something for Amazon, and he was after 10 Inspire 2 users to lend him their aircraft. And the chances are at least 2 or 3 of these will probably not make it back, and he'll pay for them. And the reason he was asking for that was it was quicker to get 10 user aircraft than 10 brand new ones at the time, because there wasn't a lot of stock around. So the Inspire 2 does have a very good reputation as a disposable aircraft from a medium to high-end Cine, because the money involved in those shoots, it doesn't matter. If they've been a 2-3 grand aircraft, it doesn't matter.
But if they've been a Red camera,
it's very different. And that, you know, they're still flying the Reds. You know, they're doing the main footage on all of these big Altas and everything with Reds. But the Inspire 2 is the one that's flying a foot above the car and chasing it. And
do the production companies actually own the Reds, or is it like the
it's usually rental?
Yeah,
it's large cinema equipment. It's usually everything is rented. Some companies do have their own production means, but most of the time those more expensive things are all rentals.
Because it's fully tax deductible when you rent stuff, and it's all about the money. If you buy it, you've got to depreciate it, and it costs you more money. Just rent it.
You know, you can get an Inspire 2 with an X5S for less than $5,000. If someone bins that in a day's filming, it's a blink of an eye. You know, these guys are paying $5,000 for a Red mag.
That's my catering budget when I'm on a shoot. When I'm
it's
that's what I want for my.
You just got to, you know, you've had in the UK this week.
I spend that on hookers in one day.
In this week, we've had the government talking about spending for takeouts of only $50,000 for the MPs in London. So as you say,
that a company, wasn't that guy on one of those like reality TV things where they had to present to a financier to get funding for a cafe? The guy at the Filipino restaurant. Yeah, because I watched that on Netflix just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I recognise him and his missus. They got investment backing from a guy
They
to
just got
set up a
investment
chain
backing
of
from the British
restaurants, and I'm
government
thinking,
as
"Oh,"
well.
and now he's gone bust.
To the tune of 50 grand. But yeah,
Well,
you know,
sorry, Ian, but that's a little bit interesting in that there's been a lot of money being chucked at drones, and a lot of these contracts that are coming out of the UK are turning out to be very, very mates rates and for your chums. And I said at the time, I hope a lot of these drone contracts don't get roped into some sort of skullduggery like that.
Yeah.
And all of it's taken the gloss off a lot of this, isn't it?
Well, you've got it now where there's been talk about the PPE contracts, and it's all this week. It's been very much, you know, something like the 5 biggest contracts were awarded to people who have links to MPs. You were 10 times more, 100 times more likely to get a contract if you knew an MP. There's, you know, let's be honest, it's boys club very, very much. And do we honestly think the drone industry in the UK, you know, if you start looking into some of this stuff around that Baroness in the UK, there's some consultancy there, there's some interesting fees being paid, and some people consulting who are also PFCOs. So what agenda has been passed along there? Yes.
Business as usual in the political department.
It is. It's very much the normal game.
I just must be horribly naive because I don't expect
Yes,
the world.
you are, Gary.
Yeah, I think so. I really don't expect the world to carry on like that forever, but it seems to. And the unfortunate sidebar takeaway from this horrible experience the world's gone through is an awful lot of people have got a lot wealthier, and it ain't right. And there should be some big feet stood on some heads to stop this happening again, or at least slow them down a little bit for a year or two. Let's just put our feet on their heads for a couple of years. No, who don't want to do that? Oh, all right.
What's really bizarre, right, through all this, when I was in Kazakhstan, okay, they had Europeans working in certain companies. So the oil companies there have Europeans in charge of their department. Okay, so, but it's local staff that work there. The reason why they have a European is we're seen as not bribable. Okay, we're the hard ones to bribe, right? It makes an absolute mockery of this kind of belief that we are meant to be, you know, above bribes, this, that, and the other, or backhanders. It just, it's all about who you know. Do someone a favor, they will return that favor. You know, it's a big, don't. I'll go on around.
Yeah,
I think the interesting, you know, if we bring it back around, okay, CE markings, it's going to happen. The UK is adopting the legislation as it's been shown. We're taking it at the end of the year. Even if Europe delays, the UK is going ahead. That's the noises that appear to be coming for us. So I think, which could actually end us up in a weird situation, because if Europe does delay, and there is a lot of noise from Germany about delaying, and if we all know what happens with Germany at the end of the day, it's a very, very large player in the European market, bigger now than it's probably ever been, with us stepping to one side. And if Europe delays, the UK could be left in a strange position where there are no aircraft being sold that comply, because manufacturers might not be in any rush to actually get on board, because they're not going to want to do that until a largest part of the market has set its stall out, and not only one little piece of it.
Well, there's 26 countries versus this little island. You're going to wait, aren't you? Because you can see it right now. We will set the standard, okay, and then the EU will go, you know what, we'll just tweak it here.
Exactly. That's right. Oh, we'll get rid of half of that and we'll double that. And oh, look, you've got to rewrite all your manuals. Very sorry about that. Sorry. I mean, but you're not in the EU, so you haven't got you haven't got a say. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a very real possibility this could go quite messed up. I think, you know, for you know, there's a lot of noise. You know, when is a new aircraft? Okay, I think we'll start seeing new aircraft February onwards. Well, January onwards, but February onwards for cine stuff. I think February, March, April. My bets are there will be an Inspire 3, possibly mid next year. I'm not expecting it anytime soon. But where did DJI go next with the enterprise market? Who knows?
Well, here we are. We're manufacturing company XYZ, and we want to bring a new machine to market right now. We're having this conversation because we're looking at America's setting out the stall for both Blue, SUAS, and the federally airworthy stuff. So we're not really sure about that because our little company here around the world's not really been in those meetings. We don't know what we're going to do about Europe because that's not really all solved yet. So what are the five of us going to do with our little company? Are we going to commit to producing something early next year, or are we going to sit on our hands until it all sorts itself out? What are we going to do? Well, Bruce, come on, you're the CEO. What are we going to do, Bruce?
I'm just sticking with sub 250. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Then.
And it's interesting. It says a lot. Look at the Black Friday deals. Okay, that tells you the position the companies are in. Black Friday will tell you if they're selling, if they've got overstock, what's going on. There are very few aircraft on the Black Friday deals, I've noticed this year, from anyone. So sales are either very, very low and they don't want to discount any further, or they're doing very well, because at the end of the day, if they've got overstock, they will want to shift it into the holiday season. If they wanted to shift stock for new products coming in January and February, they would be shifting it now. If you follow the TV and AV industry, all the new TVs get launched in February and March. There's a reason why we have Black Friday, Boxing Day sales. Is because the manufacturers want to get all of the old stock out of the pipeline ready for the new models to come through in the early part of the following year. And the same would be with drones. If they were going to manufacture something, drop something in January that was replacing something, it would be on offer right now. It would be on sale.
Good link from Joshua. Thanks, Joshua. There, that'll be that Canadian list of golden tickets that came up about 2 years ago, I think, something like that.
Did you see the fiasco that was the Canadian Drone Safety Week? Alan, you sort of highlighted it.
Yes, I watched Alan's stuff.
It's terrible. Just like America. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, with the C markings, do you think they'll release before remote ID is sorted out? There's a question for you, Ian. Do you think?
No, it's all part of the same cake. You won't get one without the other.
Yeah. So we've got to wait.
But then I think that very much for the UK that's moving forward on the 31st of December into a world where there's no equipment for it. It's a real pickle. Now, somebody today was at a EU summit of something and sent me a message saying, and I'm pretty sure they're wrong, so I want to throw this on the table here, that you can fly in a CTR under the new regulations in a CTR as long as you stay up to 400 feet, as long as you can stay more than 5 kilometers from an airfield. That's not right, is it? Or is it?
We're talking about the UK.
EU.
Oh, EU, don't know, because every country is different. So I wouldn't trust that within a country mile, because every EU country's national air authority can set your own definitions of what you want around airfields. Those restrictions will always still apply. So I don't think that is right. I'm happy to be proved wrong. But in the UK, it's 2.5 nautical miles around, and then with the runway stubs at 5 kilometres. So I think it'd be down to every EU's, what national aviation authority, what they decide.
And an airfield within a CTR
doesn't it doesn't really, because of the way they say it for the UK. They say if it's an EU licensed aerodrome, a YASA licensed aerodrome, a military or a government, they kind of list it like that in the UK. So it's hard to say. A CTR, yes, I can fly a CTR, but it depends how far. It's the flight restriction zones in the UK around the airport that's the important bit for us.
It surprised me. It surprised me that they were saying that with such conviction. Commercial work. I'll be very surprised. But there we are. I'm very happy to be surprised, and thank goodness all these rules are creating the EU rules are creating a unified situation across a huge area.
I mean, it's like the flight restriction zones. They kind of make sense, but don't in other respects. So if you want to fly over in a congested area, but it sits in the flight restriction zone, the airport can just go no. And you go, well, you've got to fly over those houses at 800 feet. At 400 feet, why am I a problem? Because if it's Class G airspace, you could be at 500 feet and I'll be at 400 feet. But they just go no for safety, and it's like, it doesn't add up.
You can never beat when they pull the safety card out. You've had it. You've had it. Regardless of whether it's true or not, it just said the word safety, flight safety, and that's it. You're done.
So true.
Now, I've been wandering around in my head because there's a few questions have come up this week, and I've thought, no, that's never right. And I've noticed there's quite a bit of development in the electric motor world, with claims of more efficient large electric motors, which of course can play into our world of the more manned size Cessna size aircraft getting efficient electric motors, and then plays into electric vehicles and all sorts of things. So there seems to be,
but electric motors are already, efficiency is already in the 90% mark, so you're not going to gain much, are you? If you've only got 10%, you could possibly call
No. Come on, Bruce, look at those electric motors that Tesla does. Those are crazily good motors because they are done very thoroughly. If you see one of those iFixit, it's not iFixit, but someone that takes a Tesla part and goes and opens up the electric motors, is not your yesterday's motor. So
we've already got, that's a good example of a motor that's really high efficiency. So how are they going to improve on that? And if they do improve, what effects are going to have an extra 2 or 3%? It's not going to change the world.
No,
3 times. One lot says 3 times. One lot says it's more. They've increased the efficiency by 3 times. I'm going to go off.
No, so it's like it's 3. That's 210% efficient. That's pretty good. Just hook a generator up to it and recharge the battery.
No, come on,
perpetual motion.
Bruce, imagine that you get more energy out of the motor than you put in. So that's breaking the laws of physics. So we are welcoming those very good motors if they break the laws of physics.
I won't believe it until I see a 3D rendering.
Hang on. Find something else to talk about. I'll find it. I just posted it not long ago. I'll find it. There is a 3D rendering. There is a 3D rendering. If I probably look closely, it probably tells me it's some particular bit that's improved its performance by 3 times, and not the whole motor.
I'm waiting for breaking the laws of physics. Next thing we'll get Star Trek transporter. So no more need for drones. You transport yourself to wherever you want, and with your pocket camera.
So next week when Louis is not here, we know he'll have been arrested for breaking the laws of physics.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Did we see Brendan's very good safety piece? You already knew that drones are safe. Here's more proof. Did we all see and read that?
Yeah, just codified that. Interesting. Did you see my discussion with Brendan on Twitter about he brought geofencing up, and I said, what about beyond visual line of sight? And the conversation went quiet because they could use geofencing to restrict their drones to operate within visual line of sight, but they choose not to. So they're all pro-safety on one side and not quite so pro-safety on the other side.
Oh, do you mean that part of the ad says up to 10 kilometers range, whatever it is that they say in their marketing?
Yeah. And so he said, well, what is the visual line of sight? Well, I don't think I could see a Mavic Pro at 2 kilometers, for example, but they'll fly to 8. So why not just geofence them 2 kilometers from the control?
It is funny, isn't it? The market has ended up this way. And it's not unique to DJI. If you look in any drone, the range is one of the top 3 specifications from the sales pitch point of view, whether it be DJI, Unique, Skydio, and all of them. And it is a funny situation that we end up in this. Yeah, we want safety, but we're gonna advertise the fact you can fly much further, and they are putting distances. They're not even saying, big range or big, strong radio signal. They're saying low latency, 10 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and it's always been a contradiction. They've been called out on it for many, many years, and it's clearly something sales really don't want to let go of, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Brendan's response was, it shows the robustness of the radio link and the ability to operate in harsh environments. And my response was, yeah, but you can still geofence it and say it has a range, but you don't have to provide that range. It's allowing people to fly to 8 kilometers is not making the radio link any stronger than if you simply created an 8K radio link and allowed them to fly to 2 kilometers.
They could. Sorry.
No, I've noticed the advert. I'll put the link up here. In the advert, I was just thinking you won't get Black Friday deals on AK-47s in England, will you? No, it's an AR-15. That's not the sort of deal you're going to get over there, is it?
Not going to see that.
No.
To be fair, they do limit the aircraft out the box in beginner mode. So beginner mode has a maximum distance, and they are height restricted to 120 meters. They could. I'm surprised they don't put a 600 meter limit with height as well. Do you know what I mean, Bruce? They put that 120 meter limit on in height, and you can override it, but it's something you have to physically do. It's not a hack. It's not a mod. It's just a settings change. But there's nothing stopping them doing the same thing for distance and putting a 1 kilometer rate limit on, unless you out and out go into the settings and change it.
Yeah, it just seems strange. If they were so pro-safety, this one of the big things that would be another arrow in their quill is saying, look, yes, we also restrict to visual line of sight, but they choose not to. I just don't understand why the difference.
In India, they've gone for the 15 meters. You buy their gear in India now, restricted to 15 meters altitude.
That's
really safe. A lot of tall people in danger, though.
What's really crazy though is if regardless of the fact that it says on the box you can do 6 kilometers or 10 kilometers or whatever, it's astounding how many people go, oh, I'm only getting 4 kilometers, how can I boost my range? And you suddenly realize they're flying in cities and they're going, why can't it do it? And and I'm thinking, thank God it is stopping you from going any further.
I used to spend weeks on RC groups explaining to people apples are not apples for everyone. It's heavily dependent on where you are. I'm flying from my sofa and I can only get to the bottom of the street. Why? And it's
if they don't understand why they can't get the range, you shouldn't be trying it.
No, but everything is being dumbed down. The range is one thing that is okay. It's like the megapixel race. No, it's like the megapixel race we had a few years ago with cameras. But the one that pisses me a lot is when DJI launches the Mini 2 and says wind resistance level 5, and I went, What's the hell is the level 5?
Are you not familiar with the Beaufort scale?
Sorry, Louis. I think we all know the level 5. It's level 5, Louis.
That's
it's one after level 4. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ian.
It's much better than the level 4 ones. But of course, I always turn mine up to 11.
I have mine on COVID-19.
Come on, I went to check with Beaufort scale if that was something in Beaufort scale, but no. Come on, meters per second, kilometers per hour, miles per hour, knots. Come on, something else.
It's one of the things we teach in our PFC, in our GVC course. I was going to say PFC. GVC course is, the Beaufort scale is the wind scales. But yes, you're right, Louis. It's like when you look at it, it's just like 5. It's like, what's that in miles per hour or kilometers an hour?
Meters per second, everything. Come on.
It's 17 to 21 knots, fresh breeze, moderate waves, 4 to 8 feet longer form, but it doesn't tell us that that's what level 5 means.
Small trees may in leaf begin to sway, drones may fly away.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what is the wind speed that thing can operate in? Is it
About 20 miles an hour. About 20 miles an hour at that speed. I guess maybe just over.
Well, then that's what they mean. Then that's what level 5 is. Then
Yeah, it's 17 to 21 knots, so it'll be about 20 miles an hour, maybe just over. Top of my
but,
head.
but you wouldn't say level 5, would you? You'd say
No.
What would you say for both?
But you see, the problem is we've got Americans and we've got Europeans. The Americans don't understand kilometers, and the Europeans don't understand miles. So it's a universal standard, the Beaufort scale.
Or English.
English,
It is,
please.
but when you describe it, how do you say it? Beaufort 5.
Force 5.
Yeah, you say
Force 5 DJI.
Oh yeah. Now we have a new unit that Ian just revealed us. That's what it's good with Ian. He has the inside connections on DJI that teach him these things.
Force 5 DJI. So it's got a correction and crop factor you attach to it.
A correction and crop factor. He'd be good at meetings, wouldn't he? He say a lot, get absolutely nothing done. That's what it'd be.
What do you think I do for a living?
Yeah, well, you could tell. You could tell. Professional bullshitter.
The inventor of the buzzword dictionary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, you have no idea.
Come on, guys.
No, I think I do.
But my question is: will a level 5 resistance wind work with the drone at the end of the range? Come on, I just like to mix apples and oranges.
Look, that depends whether you're upwind or downwind.
Look, level 5 is like level 4, but we've instigated a correction and crop factor, which takes on board everything around the depending weather, including the flight characteristics of the human behind the wheel of the device. And then from there, we take on board the user feedback, and that's when we come up with crop factor 5.
Yes, yeah, very good. Yes.
You've got a great future as a bureaucrat, Ian, I've got to say.
Yeah. Have you written a manual on that yet, Ian? Yes. Well, it seems that plainly is what that is. So I'm glad we've solved that little conundrum. They could have just put it a little bit more plainly, couldn't they?
We mentioned something earlier. I've just checked something. Okay, Unique.
Yes.
Where are they based now? Are they in that magical? They are in Switzerland now. They've moved.
Well, I don't know if that's official, but that's what I've been told.
They had some development going around in Zurich. Yes.
Office scale. Yeah, sorry, Andrew's comment made me laugh there. The Beaufort scale for counter UAS. Exactly. Yes. So, do you think they're in Switzerland now? Then, do you think they?
Well, no. I'm just wondering because we've obviously got this 3DR shouting how they are controlling the world still. I'm surprised we haven't had Chris all over the internet telling us how he invented Blue UAS or something like that. But it's just interesting because it's a company that won't die, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's a very different company than the one it was many years ago, yet it's still very much there in the background and is seen very much as a big player in the drone industry. The question is it? Is 3DR really? It's a well-known name in the drone industry, and I think it's played off that for quite a long time.
Are they?
Well, they were involved with that regulation.
Hang on, we're old duffers. So that's why we know the name. But would youngsters coming in now know the name? When I mean young, people under 40.
They know about the Solo and the Iris. That's folklore.
It's just interesting because they were involved in the committee for the remote ID in the US, if I remember.
Yeah, they were, or Chris Anderson was.
Is Chris Anderson 3DR? There's a question for you. Is 3DR just Chris Anderson then?
He's a figurehead of drones and well deserved. Okay. No, come on. Well or not, we might agree or not with him and what he has done after, but he was on the edge of the explosion of these remotely piloted vehicles, and he deserves that. More than the long tail book, but yes, he deserves that.
No, I think Chris was very much a very big part of what we have today. I don't think we'd have today without him. Let's be honest.
No, we might have had. Come on, not
I
on the
think-
same way, but yeah, we would have it because all the pieces were there.
Well, Geordie, Drone
Yeah.
3, I never gets down. Geordie was the hero of the hour,
Yeah.
really, back at the start.
Jordi,
I mean, let's not.
Jordi was assembling the pieces in Tijuana, but that's a different thing.
But that's what made it work, wasn't it? Because without the functioning
Yeah.
autopilots, nothing was going to happen, and he did a lot of the work.
Come on,
Remember, he used the Wii, didn't he? He made was it a tricopter you get flying with
Yeah.
that? I can't
Yeah.
remember.
You can actually, you can almost credit Chris is very much a bit like Steve Jobs in the sense of, I don't put him up to that esteem, but look, Apple haven't always invented everything. What they've done is taken all of the bits and had the foresight to see a product that other people haven't. And I think if you look at what Chris did, I think it's a similar route. He didn't invent the flight controller. He didn't invent any of this stuff, yet they put something together that created something, didn't they?
yeah,
And a
no,
community,
that's basically that. So we must be thankful in a way to Chris Anderson because he kickstarted a piece of this industry. Because then we have, for instance, a company that we don't speak often, and I thought it was strange that did not appear on the Blue Drones was the AskTech, the German guys of AskTech.
They've basically given up.
No. They're still up and running, even after Intel. But they're running their business. So I'm not sure if, and their drones are still flying. We have a guy here nearby me that still loves his Falcon. Falcon. Yeah.
No, and they were absolute trendsetters in the multi-rotor world. I remember my chum bought the first Falcon 8 in the UK, and then Cyberhawk were at the same. Cyberhawk were just going to buy. What was that other big company back then? The German one. They invented Follow Me that everyone else then said they invented it. What were they? Really back in the early days, I can't remember what they were because it was them.
Pilot. It's not no.
No. It was lots of hexacopters, and I can't remember. It'll come back to me later. But anyway, they were going to buy. That's what Cyberhawk was going to buy. They were going to buy a fleet of those things, and they saw the Falcon 8, and then they bought that. But I remember watching this German lad. It was in Shropshire somewhere, and he put their little, because those things that they had sort of ones that universities used a lot. I can't remember the name. It had sort of a little cage to it, and he put it in his hand, and he just punched it out of his hand with the controller. It shot up till we couldn't see it, and then he pulled the throttle back, and it arrived back in his hands, and we all went, "Oh, very good." Very good indeed. That was a very, very good demonstration. And this was, 2008, 2009, 10 maybe at the most. So it really was. And nice people with great cutting-edge stuff. So they were starting. But then, all right, as he rants off to one side, if we keep in that storyline, did we see then that Intel's released the price of its shows this week, which they said they were never going to do. So you can purchase yourself a small show for, I think it's $200,000, and the bigger ones are $400,000.
And
Intel known before Christmas.
We've seen that Guinness Book, Guinness record in China with how many? It was.
I think my guess is, I said in my little lunchtime thing, is watch this space. I reckon Intel's getting ready to offload that light show business.
Intel are in a very difficult position right now. Intel are not in a good place in any shape or form. From if you take they're losing share massively they've lost virtually total share in the gamer market overnight. AMD have literally kicked their asses in every direction they can. Don't get me wrong, they still do very well out of OEMs, but Intel have not had any good news for the last 12 months, and they've suddenly hit a dead end with an architecture they were putting all their money into with their new chips that won't work. And I wouldn't be shocked if they completely got rid of all of this play business on the side, because they are hemorrhaging money. And don't get me wrong, they're a very rich company. Let's not pretend they're not. But we have seen massive players fall before, and whilst they've got a very good reputation overall, they're under attack from every angle at the moment, absolutely every angle. And yeah, the drone business has got to be a distraction. All the head, they've got rid of heads of department. They've restructured their whole chip business. Everything is in flux at the moment. The only thing that's doing well actually with Intel is their camera market, their vision systems.
No, because they're also offloading people from there. You can see, for instance, on the ArduPilot conference, we had a person from Intel that spoke on the vision-based systems.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he was on his way out. So, the upgrades on the firmware of the cameras, and I mean the stereo cameras, the localization cameras, T265 and 435. And we haven't seen much development. We haven't seen a development cycle of new products coming along. We haven't seen bug fixing in due time. So that is just a marginal market for them, just below a distraction.
If you follow any of the computer industry, you will see Intel are getting hammered from every angle right now.
Yes.
Absolutely. Every angle. So yeah, they're in trouble, and they're in trouble in the sense of they don't have a road out, and that's their biggest problem right now, because they've openly admitted that they have a blocked pipeline. But we'll have to see. Look, they'll rebound. Like, it's Intel, but
Intel just has to do what most large companies don't like to do, which is to stop and, if necessary, kill the current product line of CPUs and start from scratch.
Yeah.
That's expensive. It takes time, but I think that they are in panic mode now with the M1 chip from Apple, because initial reports of that M1 says that
everywhere. They've lost Apple. They've got AMD beating them pretty much in every corner. They've lost Apple. Their architecture. They've had to step back on an architecture size, which because they can't make it work. And again, it's, as you say, their problem is everywhere they're turning, their friends are turning against them, and that's the biggest problem for them. But
so pretty soon they'll be looking for support on Patreon.
I don't think they're in that much trouble, Bruce.
Right then, lads. So everyone look behind the sofa cushions, and let's see if we can buy out the Intel drone light show. Let's get that.
It's a distraction, is what it is at the moment, and that's what, with all of the trouble they're in, it will simply be looked at as, what the hell is this, and why are we messing with it, and where is the return on investment? Where's the ROI? Can I have it in the next 2 years? If you can't, get rid of it.
Well, I think is it perhaps an interesting way to get into military contracts? Because obviously swarming drones are the future, according to everyone. China's got them, and then it's, all these swarming drone things seem to be, and it's illegal to have them unless you're a military or an approved operator. So perhaps they're using that as a way of wheedling their way into military contracts. Because remember, the AMD, that's not American, so they might decide we can't buy AMD for government contracts like they did with DJI. So who knows? It's maybe their way of securing a position as the loved CPU maker of America, and when things all turn to custard, that'll be the one that the Americans fall back on. So while all the other countries are using less power and operating more quickly, Intel will be providing the backbone for the US military.
Did you see Intel fight back a bit against the new AMD chips, though?
Well, they are, but they're
It was
making up
rubbish.
nonsense.
Yeah, it was lies.
Yeah, they're basic, and it comes to something. There was something. Whilst this isn't drone topical, it says something. They recently did a release, and they mentioned their own brand once, and they mentioned AMD something like 17 times, and that tells you where their head is at. When you're only talking about your competition, you've got a big problem, and that's where they're at the moment. But they'll recover. The drone. I always felt Intel they're like Microsoft. Microsoft were doing the same for years. They were buying up all of this completely random stuff. You know, Microsoft bought Skype, then they bought there's some really weird stuff Microsoft have bought over the years.
Before Skype, the largest purchase was of an advertising company.
Yeah.
That then they have written off a couple of years later with a huge billions loss.
Yeah, you know, it's a Google.
You used to work for them. You used to work for Microsoft, didn't you, Louis? Did you pocket that cash? Was that you?
No. I was before that. It was before that. Nice. I was still there when the company bought. I don't remember the name. It was an advertising company that everybody went, huh? Who are these guys? But it was too many billions to mention. And a couple of years later, they written off the losses.
It's funny, actually. I think we're going to see a lot of this drone. You know, we've seen a lot of random drone stuff over the last couple of years, and I think one thing this pandemic will do is I think it's going to put a lot of nails in a lot of coffins on some of these random rendered drone projects that you've seen every other company.
Speaking literally, not figuratively.
I don't.
Well, I think you're right. And David Davis asking about Aerialtronics, and Louis replied absolutely correctly. And I think Drone Vault.
Something like that. I can't remember exactly who bought them, but they kind of disappeared off the market.
Yeah, and I think
I spoke with Aerialtronics a couple of times. Because there was interest at the time to buy some of their drones for the wind turbine inspection. But they were, I don't know, they were aiming for high volume, high price, and that was not, so we had a different understanding of how the market would play around.
And they were right on the rise of DJI, weren't they? They were kind of. It might be a better time to be starting a drone company now, because you can see what the market wants from what DJI has put out and what people are buying, and you can start fiddling around to that. Whereas back then, everyone was still groping around to actually find the sweet spots.
Do we think Sony are really going to get into this? If we look at this Sony thing, we've seen
a
this
fishing trip.
Come on, Ian. Don't you have an AIBO?
No, I don't. But yeah, I know what you mean.
So they still sell it. The new version. They stopped selling it, and a couple of years later, they began reselling it.
Yeah,
but it's a gimmick.
Yeah, but they make very good cameras. Some of the best cameras out there. They have the source. They've got the ingredients. They could literally do better than anyone else.
They don't have Mr. Sony, and they need Steve Jobs to have all the pieces glued together and make it work.
Yeah, but making drones is easy. I mean, look, if GoPro can do it, not a good example.
Exactly. Well, it's only two sticks and four motors, isn't it? Come on, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Come on. It's so easy that we even get guys asking, "What is MHZ?" So
yeah, you saw me.
And actually, that is a very good point Bruce makes there. If you were standing in front of the Sony board and they go, "Yeah, we're going to get into drones. We got all the recipe," and you just sit there and say, "GoPro." GoPro would in the same position as you. They had the action camera market. They honed the action camera market inside out. They have all of the bits in place to make one of the best aerial, type. They could have been what Skydio is. If we look at it, if you get my meaning, it was that action drone. It was very much, and they did it so badly. So it just does show, just because you are such a big company with all of the expertise, they need someone. They need someone to steward them in the right direction. Chris,
the bigger they are, the harder they fall when the battery contacts break.
Well, yes.
Well, Chris, and then who's the chap in America? Name I've forgotten. Other than Chris, who was the DJI man.
Oh yeah. Those two.
Colin
Gwynn.
Colin, yeah. Colin,
Yeah.
Same deal, isn't it?
Yeah,
same deal.
If you put Chris Anderson, let's be honest, Chris knows the industry. He's the kind of guy who would be a very good steer for them, because there's very few people who could just walk in with the experience. There's people who worked at DJI, but they're not innovators or people seen to have helped start an industry or help push it along. But it'll be interesting to see if it really happens. I still think it's all smoke and mirrors, and I just don't see it happening. I just think you're just going to get a better SDK which works with PX4, and that's it.
And it's microcopter as the people I was thinking about. And this is exactly. But look, they were absolutely the first people you could buy a multi-rotor from. And where are they? No one knows about them now. And any old Holger
they still sell stuff.
I know they do, but but in how many units of 10?
Living on the bleeding edge is death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes, you've said that before, haven't you? I need to make that one another one of our banners. But my mate, he bought a controller from there, and I think it cost £1,000. And we had some purple motors. I might even have one lying around, and we made up a quadcopter, and we used a yogurt pot or something for the for the dome or whatever.
You did it first.
Oh, did you have to do that? Oh, I thought you had to sort of bed them in with a little bit of organic growth or something.
It was the culture of the time, yeah.
Culture of the time. You got there before me. So yeah, but and then I can't remember what we did with the camera, but this thing flew terribly because I'd made it or helped make it, and it was but that was.
You'll remember one thing from microcopter: the I2C connection to the ESC motor unit. That was terrible.
Right. Yes,
actually, that was followed up. Who was it? It wasn't. There was another crowd did exactly the same thing and had exactly the same problem. It was a Chinese company. I forget, the Lotus quad, I think it was. And yeah, they had I2C controllers, and they would fall out of the sky. Terrible. Not a good choice.
Yeah, and I think you probably say the first. Oh, no, I forgot. I was starting to say it. The first thing that got really popular was that Chinese thing that came out with gyros. It was actually 4 gyros, and it was like an open frame. I can't remember what it was called, but that's the one.
Did you ever build them with gyros? We used helicopter gyros.
Tricopters.
Yeah.
I did that, but then there was a Gaui, the Gaui 330. I think that's the one that tipped the imagination of the RC Groups crowd and became affordable. And the first version of that had to say it was 4 helicopter gyros in a box, pretending to be a flight controller.
I only needed 3.
I've just realised the abuse in his name. What have I done now? I've only just noticed.
What's that?
You're a bit slow today.
I did actually read the tag at the bottom.
I'll change it because obviously, broken up now.
Yeah, he's not only shilling chairs now; he's shilling t-shirts as well.
I've run out of clothes. I've been painting all day.
10p for a t-shirt. I'll take one.
Oh dear. I must admit I am a little bit worried about Ian, because just before we came on air I noticed a report from the UK of dangerous wildlife being released from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Fear, or whatever it's called, which is being filmed in Wales, and the police have been called apparently because there's cockroaches and things.
Yes, it's a bit far from me. That I'm not anywhere near there, so I've got nothing to worry about. To be honest, I'm usually the dangerous wildlife in my local area. I've often been told it's an ape strategically shaved to look like a man. So I think I fall under the Dangerous Animal Act.
Welcome to Wales. Moving on swiftly. Now, what other stories? Oh, did you see I did post that link earlier to that 250 kilowatts and a 15 kilo package electric motor, Bruce?
Yeah.
You go back up the thing. You
Well,
unpack that.
it did.
Go on. Sorry.
Sorry. No,
No,
go on.
no. I'm going to say after you.
So, well, as you posted earlier in the week, it looks like the CAA in the UK have washed their hands of the open category and responsibility for policing it.
Yes.
Yes, they've turned around and gone, it's the police.
Yeah.
You got a drone problem, call the police.
Yeah.
Yeah. Police are going to be jolly happy about that, aren't they?
Well, it sort of is their problem now, though. You know, at the end of the day, any drone issues it is directed to the local police anyway. Having been on the receiving side of this myself, ladies and gentlemen, so I suppose it is a natural thing to say, but it's quite funny. When the police I dealt with were very good guys. They didn't really know a lot about the subject, and you know, I gave them a lot, probably too much information. That was the problem, because they sort of sat there and went, "So what does that mean then?"
And they didn't know about your previous record.
They didn't know about my previous record. But the problem they're going to have is, unless there's some proper training for these guys, and not just that. Look, even us understanding the rules is something you've got to keep on top of. They've got no hope. You know, sitting here saying congested area, you know, the basics they can deal with. Congested area, you know, is this congested? You're in the middle of a street. Yes, as far as we're concerned, it's congested. Were you over 120 meters? That stuff is easy to police. But when it starts getting down to the rest of this regulation with FRZs and, you know, what permissions do you have? Hold on a minute. So, you know, the police is expected to come up when these new regs come in and say, right, so where are you flying? What C class was your aircraft? How far were you from people? What was the intended purpose of the flight? And, you know, they're meant to be able to understand all of this stuff. They're never going to do it.
The thing is, though, that police will be like police always, because they've always had the power to deal with drones under other. In fact, originally, a lot of the cases brought against drones were done under existing legislation, endangerment, trespass, all that sort of stuff. So I suspect the police won't care too much about aviation regulations. They'll just use the rules they already have. Did you endanger this person? Did you cause damage? You know, all that sort of stuff. And that's
public
the way they'll
nuisance
deal with
is the big one. Yeah, public nuisance is the massive.
Yeah, a lot easier to do that than to jigger around with modern newfangled.
How are police going to tell what height your
improved.
drone is with that remote ID? How are they going to know what 120 meters versus 119? I mean, it's not going to happen. So it will be just general law.
So remote ID is for law enforcement. Cap 722 clearly stated in the UK. You know, so the police can look at it and go, "Yeah, you were a kilometre away. Here's your fine. Crack on."
And that's probably why CAA in CAP 722 also said that they won't be prosecuting unless there's actual danger, risk. So they'll leave the police to deal with the trivia.
Yeah, and you know, and let's just say we do get to the remote ID situation, and if it goes like we think, well, when we get to it, sorry, and if it goes, so the police will pitch up, pull a phone out, and open an app. And then they're going to go, oh, he's over there. But are they still going to understand any of the rest of the information? You know, height, distance. Do they have to? You know, but then comes the problem of justifying something like I had to when the person doesn't understand. And they were lovely guys, don't get me wrong. But, you know, they said, oh, we've had a complaint of you flying over a guy's property. And I went, no, I was not within 150 meters of the property. Not once did I go within the boundary. Not once did I overfly. I'm PFCO. This is, this is all my details. And they were sitting there going, so what are you allowed to do? What's that? You know, the funny thing is when I showed them my UK drone registration, they were going, so that's the ID. And I went, yes, that's the bit that says I'm a registered drone user. And they said, so where'd you get that from? And so it just shows that they're in a position that they don't really understand what they're having to deal with. And they were grateful for me hanging around.
Don't you think they have more important things to do than trying to understand what is a driver's license for drones? Come on.
There's a huge market for eBay specials where people can, with holograms and pictures and all that sort of stuff, and an official looking card, and you can show it to the police and go, "This is my official looking authority," and they go, "Oh, okay, away you go."
As I said, I think my biggest problem was I told them too much. Because it confused. Because they start sitting there going, "So what does that mean? What okay?" And they literally sat there when they saw the aircraft and went, "Oh, that's not like what we're used to dealing with." Because it was the Inspire 2 and it's a little bit bigger than what they're used to dealing with. He said, "We're used to dealing with the small ones." And I was like, "Yeah, no." I said,
"That's what my wife says."
That's all.
Yeah.
but then, we had a chat, and then they were interested in what it cost, and then they were interested in how it could actually help them. And then we had a bit of a chat about the other local police force that has them, and they don't have them locally. And it was really good. But what was clear was they are really in the dark, really, really in the dark about this whole thing.
Yeah.
So your strategy is to bore them away.
Priority for them. Come on. For law enforcement, they have so many things that they have to care about. That is just a trivia of distraction.
Yeah. I mean, if you was to go into a Tesco in the UK and nick £100 worth of stuff, right, the police probably wouldn't come to the Tesco to deal with you because you're not considered a big crime. They really, it is getting that bad here, especially in, I can't say the police force that I was talking to, and they were very much like, we wouldn't even bother with that because it's a non-issue to them. It's like, and there is a Tesco in the UK, and I think they lose £100,000 worth of stuff like a month is just stolen, and nothing's really done about it. It's horrendous at times. But, CAP 722, they said it's definitely the police. It was interesting. They said privacy concerns, though. That was the other commission. I forget which one. So that's the privacy commission. And then there was another one. What was the other one? So data handling as well was another one they were saying. GDPR, that's not our responsibility either. They only actually will deal and audit people flying in the specific or the certified category.
Yet, when someone saw a drone near Stansted, they had, and it was an Apache or a Black Hawk helicopter following the drone, and the police were involved. And so sometimes they will roll out the red carpet and do whatever they need to.
Oh, look out! Here he comes! Right, get ready. Oh, look! He's grown a beard. He's decided to join the crowd.
Oh my
God!
God!
All the cool kids were doing it.
Eremit.
Yeah.
He's
you
even
included the grey. It was very good to include the grey as well. Very good.
He's turned into Mel Gibson.
Without
Randy Quaid.
I just all the cool kids are doing it, and I'm working on a drone Santa mall Santa side hustle thing.
Oh yeah.
Until the 82 billion comes in.
Wear plastic pants. I can speak with authority. If you're going to do the Santa in the mall thing.
Will Santa Claus use drones for delivery this year?
I think he was doing it last year.
Yeah,
right?
we've had those adverts.
Now, this year, Coca-Cola advertisement was a truck. So,
yeah. Look, Patrick, you've joined late. We've already been discussing why the FAA seem to have given out another 10 golden tickets for the airworthiness stuff. So is that what you wanted to come and rant on about? Which particular bit of the current cluster do you want to rant about?
One thing is this is like the Commonwealth Drone Club that you got going on here. I feel that, slighted as there's no representation from the colony or the used to be colonies. No. Hey, look, the FAA is leading the way, okay? And I've been having this conversation, right, for a little while. So, I know that the UK's got some new rules. It looks like the EU's getting some new rules, right? And people are happy about them. They may not be totally happy, but they're like, at least things are clarified and we can do X, Y, and Z. So that sounds good, right? And as everybody here knows, USA is leading the way. So what happens is the Europeans seem to be like spooling up, and then the FAA says, we got to do some global harmonization. And then maybe by the end of next year or something, they'll adopt some of the stuff that you're doing in Europe and say, well, that was our idea. We were doing that first. But the type certification thing is provisional. You're not going to get drone delivery anytime soon. The other thing that it reminds me of, and the old timers here will remember that too, is remember in 2016 when Part 107 came out and 3DR went out of business and other companies started to fail. So if you look at the 10 companies, right, who's the first one? It's 3DR. There is really no 3DR. I think Esri owns that. And they're using a unique.
Yeah. Well, we sort of mentioned that. We didn't mention. I did forget to mention that Esri own it because that's one of Matey's big mates, isn't it? From Silicon Valley, is actually friends with him, and he bailed him out basically.
Well, I mean, I
pivoted to software. Here
it's Esri people in the office, and then I saw Chris was selling his house on Twitter or whatever. I mean, I don't know. The other deal I think is kind of funny is Amazon. Remember now, everybody was going to get their packages delivered with Amazon. What, 2017? That was happening. And Gurr left. We kind of, there was some chatter about that. I guess you get tired of the prestige and the money and the private jets and the crystal. You're like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go join some startup with no money because I like that better than working with Amazon. No, we knew there were problems at Amazon. That's another one that the TC thing. I mean, I've heard they've spent over $1 billion on this program and they've got really nothing to show.
And they've just fired the developers. The research and development's been gutted.
When you're paying these salaries, when you're living in Silicon Valley, if you're not making $200,000 a year, you have 4 roommates. Skinny jeans don't grow on trees. It's all these other things that you need to have.
I don't think it was the Farnborough that you and I were at. I don't think it was that year, or maybe it was that year. Was that 2010 when we were there? I can't remember.
2014 and then there was the Paris Air Show. It's like,
it was at that. Maybe it was that would make it right if 2017 was coming. But the woman from Amazon came and gave a little chat, and she absolutely what I would call lied about what they were doing, and we knew what they were doing, and I just couldn't believe what she was saying. It was like that's you're talking rubbish, woman. And when I
the future is the administrator of the FAA.
Well, no, when I pulled it out on it, this other woman swept in and said, no, we're not doing interviews. Who are you? We're not doing interviews. I said, no, tell that.
But everybody does. You know how I keep shooting myself in the foot. And I do think the worm's turning because the phone's ringing off the hook for, I do consulting, not just insulting, is what I tell people. But I shoot myself in the foot. Saying, it's hard and you have to take steps and you're doing aviation and it's going to take a while to get through, click. Nobody wants to hear that. They all want to hear it's going to work. Same deal with UAM. I did that Churchill Club thing.
AAM.
I know.
Keep up.
Here's another thing for the people out there. When the nomenclature changes, that means we hit the wall and nothing got done and the spaghetti slid off. So we're going to change the nomenclature. So it looks like it's new. Here's fresh spaghetti and it's going to be good. So, they said the same thing with UAM. Remember, we were going to have the Part 135 cert for Joby in 2020. Better get cracking because we're running out of time. Not happening. The other thing I think is interesting, too, with that is, did you see that Hyundai wants to do freight UAM first?
Funny old thing.
I know. Well, God, who would have thunk it? But so I'm going to buy a $500,000 pickup truck so I can ride share people's, freight around. None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense anymore. It's too fanciful, too fantastic, and they just move on to the next thing in 6 months. I just don't see how we're going to get here from there. We got to get realistic.
I think we've got another 2 years of AAM bullshit. I think.
Oh, there, see, the family part of the show dropped right
there. We've been already talking about what was Louise. We were already talking about something, so the family went at the start.
Yeah.
He probably went to go get a bowl of cereal or something,
But of course, a lot of the AAM stuff is, there's two industries are required to build UTM, and those two industries are AAM and counter UAS, because without their whirling dervish of fear and requirement, you can't build UTM industries quickly. They need those two to be saying, we need all the airspace for our deliveries and our people, and we need to protect you all, so we need a UTM. So yeah, that's what those two are seeking to do at the moment, is build those
Let me
industries.
ask you, is anybody else getting RID anywhere?
What, remote ID?
Yeah, is anybody?
Everybody.
Pretty much
Everyone's talking
everyone.
about it.
Okay, good, because I want you to be just as oppressed as us freedom-loving people here in the United States.
I'm not
convinced
we're getting exactly the same as
No.
because a good idea is to have a completely different standard all around the world, so that it makes compliance a very hard wherever you are. That's a really good idea.
Well,
Having
the
a
US
single
was
standard.
the most difficult. However, the document they released shortly afterwards, they realized it was a bit difficult to implement and it was heavily watered down. But we've heard nothing since. There's still nothing officially which is going to say where the US will land. Other than
Well, no, the administrator of the FAA told us everything. 300 feet and above. That's it. He said it. He wouldn't lie.
Yeah, well, that's the scuttlebutt. But the thing with it is we got. I'm hearing two different kinds. We got the one where it's going to be the DJI app, and if you already have it, it's going to work with that. And we have a few issues here in the United States. One of them, I've been doing a lot of FOIAs. It's like, hey, how did this work with the cohorts? Was there some ex parte stuff going in here? Who was privy to this rule and technology and standards before the people? And there's a lot of, let's say, unknowns in this thing. And all I'm seeing is there's two different things that I'm seeing. One, you'll get the cell phone app that DJI already has. So the DJI is going to get a mandate, which I think only helps to bolster the monopoly. Or there's another one where the cell phone companies, Intel has got a little piece of equipment you will buy, put it on your drone, and then you can do a cell phone service. They're going to throw RID in for free because you're going to get that with your data subscription. You'll get the RID for free, which to me, wait, I got to pay extra if I don't have this one blessed company who's got a free solution. That seems kind of weird to me. And from the people I've been talking to, the people are gearing up for lawsuits on this RID thing.
But then again, the DJI one is open. What they're showing is what we're getting. What DJI is showing is what Europe's getting, which is the open ASTM standard. That's all they've shown. Their app might be capable, but any app would be capable. It would be.
I think Patrick is mentioning the professional side that some countries already have to detect the drones. In the end, I think, like it or not, the French solution might be the best one.
Oh, Jesus, we're in trouble.
What, the flashing lights?
Yeah, I like the flashing lights. That was a good
No. It's a Bluetooth dongle that you put on the. Yeah, it's similar to the one of Intel. Similar to the one of Intel.
Yeah, Intel is.
But if you don't have, is it has GPS in the dongle? Because if you don't have GPS on your quad or your model aircraft, then it can't provide all the data.
I don't know. I'll have to check because as it is French, I didn't pay much attention to the open source projects. Sorry.
The hate mail's coming to Gary. What is all of this anti-French stuff?
No, it's not
French.
anti-French. Come on, it's not anti-French.
Well, I said
My view.
No, the usual French.
I've just forgotten I got that up there.
No, the French guys went ahead and started the drone ID first than anyone. They already have it in place.
Yeah, it's running. It is running. Yes.
It is running, and they can come up to the other guys and say, "Sorry, our system works. Use it."
That's
But the French also invented Peugeot and Renault. Goodness me.
Look,
And
if we break.
if
you do break remote ID down, though, if you break it down to the basics, we have about three basic versions. We have the open system, which is Europe is pushing, which is available to pick up on your phone. It's basically Wi-Fi. That's all it is. It's just Wi-Fi. You then have a dongle, which is Bluetooth or whatever it needs to be. Whereas, the first one can be both. If your aircraft isn't equipped, you fit a dongle, or if your aircraft is capable of having a firmware to allow it, then it would have it. And then you've got these more difficult setups where you have to be signed on to a specific UTM or a service provider where your aircraft is communicating with them, and that data then is being passed to the government, which was one of the things, part of the US recommendation.
Yeah, we have a problem with that, though, because that is one of the things that I FOIA'd is the con ops for that digital investigation thing and how that's all going to work. And supposedly the deal is they're going to log all of that information. So later on, you decide, you're going to be a thorn in the civil aviation side, like this guy down here in New Zealand does every couple of years. Exactly. They'll be able to run through all of that collected data and go back and hit you. So I FOIA'd that. I was like, well, what is this going to look like? How's this going to work? Oh, we're still working on it, so we can't share it, which is not really true. But I don't think that they want to let the cat out of the bag on how it's going to work, because I'm not really sure that they know how it's going to work. But this was one of the things that AOPA, the Airplane Owners and Pilots Association, was against with ADS-B. Is that the FAA would be able to track people, and then if somebody did later say, oh, well, they were dragging their tail in the clouds, or they cut through some airspace or whatever else, that they would be able to go back and check the tapes and say, oh, well, here we go, and then we could violate one of the AOPA members. And we don't really want it because we don't really feel like it's worth the cost and the effort for safety, because there's really not a lot of safety there. And I think that's before they'd started broadcasting the weather to them, which pushed them over the top on safety. I think the same thing here. I've also talked to people who are doing, they have their own secret sauce with the drone operations, drones as a service, delivery, whatever they're doing. Everybody has a little angle on how they're doing it, and farming, whatever. And they are concerned that other people, who's going to be able to see what they're doing and how they're doing it and emulate their operation. I don't know how secret the secret sauce is on drone delivery or farming or whatever, but there are concerns about that.
Yeah, it is, and that's the problem with the UK. As we've all said, the Wi-Fi one, it's only going to need a network of devices set up across the UK on Raspberry Pis, and you've suddenly built a very large and valuable data collection network where every commercial operation in the UK is tracked. You'll be able to, in fact, see what every operator is doing and where and when, and it raises massive questions. It really does. Because
how long before Flight Radar 24 adds it to their available list?
Yeah. It can pay not to appear on Flight Radar 24 if you can.
But the thing to remember, if we take Flight Radar, we know planes go to an airport. You don't know what passengers are on them. You just know that there's a plane going from point A to point B. The problem with this is you're going to have an operator ID transmitted where you will be able to go, that commercial operator in the last 6 months has done all of these flights in these locations. Let's go and have a look at where he's been. Knock the door, steal a customer. It's going to be potentially very, very risky.
Or Drugstore Cowboy. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, but the thing with these criminals, and it probably everyone on this call lives in an area.
We're all criminals. Yeah, we know.
These criminals are crafty, twice as crafty as I am. They figure out an angle on everything. Maybe it's all that extra time you're sitting at home or in a jail cell somewhere. I got it. I'm going to write this one down. You can steal drugs, you can steal packages, you can steal food, you can steal weed, you can steal money. You could have a free-for-all with this deal. So again, I'm sorry, and I've been beating this drum for the last 20 years or whatever. The lack of expertise in the regulatory thing it just boggles my mind that we're still here. And I'm not only talking about, like conceptually or whatever else, but from an engineering standpoint of view, from a real world standpoint of view, again, shooting myself in the foot. But it's like, hey man, I think you could get a room of engineers together and it's like, okay, we're going to run this RID thing up the flagpole. And in 20 minutes, you'd probably have 100 items of issues that need to be worked out before we can really go live with it. And I don't think that that's done. And then you just throw this thing out. Oh, look what we did. Oh, you created a problem for yourself. And the same thing, I'm still mad about the RC thing. If you don't have an autopilot or some sort of flight augmentation system, the RC hobby is very self-limiting. You get beyond visual line of sight and what happens?
You fly DJI.
Exactly. Or you just crash and you go home with cry face. And for all of us that are old enough to have built our own system, the new foam thing's not so bad. You throw
deploy the plastic bags, deploy the trash sack. Yeah.
But you need creating problems that you don't really need solutions for. And it's the same thing that you guys seen here where Google wants to deliver books. Doesn't Google have a whole Google electronic book thing? Well, electronic books suck. Yeah, but there's no COVID on them.
It gets
I'm struggling to see a lot of advocates of, and also what annoys. Hang on, again on my high horse. What annoys me is a lot of the advocates of UAM or AAM, knee UAM. Are now getting onto the delivery bandwagon. I can see there are points for. There are places where delivery will work for emergencies
but most of the goods
stuff and not. Sorry, Lee.
Most of the goods that were ideal candidates to transport are not needed anymore. You don't buy you don't buy DVDs.
Yeah,
you don't buy CDs. And books, usually the books that one has to buy is because there is not an electronic version. So usually it's technical manuals this big, weighing 1 kilo. So it's so strange.
Well, that's being held up as the great. Look at this! Look how fantastic it is! Everybody's loving this wing thing, but it's like in Australia where they were delivering coffee and sun cream was one great example they held up. The shop was about 9-minute walk from where because they didn't have it they didn't have a shop, did they? They have a containerized thing where they only had those products, and then it went out to the house. It didn't go from a shop. It was about 9 minutes walk.
Have you guys seen this week? Was it this week? The last week in Italy, it was a very publicized ceremony of delivering some medical supplies from one hospital to the other, and the police delivered it on a Lamborghini at 250 kilometers per hour. Come on.
I saw that. And what about the helicopter that was carrying a heart and it crashed, and then the surgeon picked it up and tripped over and dropped it? Did you see that one?
That was not to be. That was not to be. But where I was trying to go with that is if you in that case for sun cream or a cup of coffee, if you can't sort your life out enough to get a cup of coffee or sun cream, then we got to be having some other conversations. Maybe you need that hot, or maybe
that's dad talking right there. Yeah, exactly. Because here in California, I got to go to the store, and it's probably a 5-minute walk. But in California, it's like you jump in the car. Oh, I got to go over to see the neighbor. Let me jump in the car. I'll go over there. We don't
drug deals, man. Drug deals. You smack your crystal methamphetamine, even your dope. That's the ideal product for drug delivery. It's anonymous. They can't shoot you.
The drone delivery industry has been going really well for years. It's been fantastic for years. It's been a great success. Really great success.
In prisons, I think the best market is prisons. Bruce, you should open up a business for that.
When I get there, I will, though. Once they incarcerate me, I'll sort that out.
Well, if I were you, Bruce, I would do up a coloring book that you can bring to the CIA because I hear they're popular down there.
Yeah, but they just chew all the crayons. It's no good. I've tried that.
Exactly. On there, and you're good to go. No, there has been good drone delivery, and it's the same thing down at the border. They used to use these ultralights. Like when I was working for the Navy, I was down there in the Yuma sector. very busy down there with drugs. And there must be money in drugs. That's what I'm thinking, because, people keep finding ways on how to deliver them, But they used to fly in ultralights. We were working out of it was a bomber base, B-29 bomber base. And they would fly them there and people would do training, huge runways. And it's out in the middle of nowhere. And they'd fly the ultralights in and they would deliver the drugs. And then they got rid of the ultralights and did the drones. And it's been going on for a long time. And the government here just can't stop it. But maybe now with RID, National Beacon, and
because if you look at that thing where the drone, the news helicopter, or was it the police helicopter and the drone collided in America, the guy's been prosecuted. Remote ID, they didn't need that. Registration, they didn't need that. They got the info off the SD card in the drone, and that's how they caught him. So all that's other stuff, it's not needed.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, there's forensics that could be. All of this stuff is it's busy work that the FAA creates for themselves and other people create for them. And the other thing that really gets my goat, and I hate to be Debbie Downer, and a lot of the old timers here get into the same deal where people are like, "It's coming, drone deliveries coming beyond visual line of sight. It's right there. I can taste it." How long have we been? I mean, it's just like, come on, it's like,
show me a road. I want to go home. No, show me a company, a commercial company that doesn't already fly BVLOS so they can make a profit, and you can't. There's not.
That can't be right, because there would be bodies everywhere if that was the case. There'd be aircraft down. There'd be people decimated, lying in the street, bleeding corpses, because it's just too damn dangerous.
Did you guys talk about the DJI story? I'm sure you did, with the safety.
Which DJI? So which one?
The one with where they said drones are safe.
Yeah. We mentioned that. I mean, it's pretty good. It's
that's in line with the George Mason University paper, which talks about millions of hours of flight time.
I wanted to do a fact sheet. I've been talking about it for a few years. The safety numbers. I mean, if you look at the safety numbers for let's say the light sport aircraft, which was supposed to save GA, the fatality rate is like 6 deaths in every 100,000 hours. And the FAA, it's all about safety, all about safety. I mean, these things, they shouldn't even be flying, falling out of the sky. And you're talking about drones. The only problem with DJI doing it, and this is the thing that really kind of bugs me about drone flaws, as I like to call them, is your credibility. DJI's credibility is just shot through the grease, as far as I'm concerned, with any public policy or PR. They make good stuff, great price point, DJI stuff works, all the rest of that. The policy and the PR, they're not credible. And unfortunately, they release this, they're safer, and they look at the numbers and all the rest of that. I don't think anybody's going to take them as credible. Personally, nobody I know of. I know a lot of people.
I know people.
Perhaps you don't know the right kind of people, Patrick.
Oh, I know everybody. I don't see anybody is taking them credible after this data collection debacle. I mean, it's like high school.
I think that they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because how do they know all those hours if they don't collect the users' logs? So, oh my God, these guys are collecting all this info.
Well, they did make it clear it was from the data that was shared with them by all.
We can look at some Inspire 2 logs from Wales. There, I'm sure.
You can definitely see a few of them.
That is it's a good point, because again, that's the thing. They have no credibility with the data sharing, and then you have to opt in, which isn't really true. So, none of it makes any sense.
It's the same. No, it is true, because it's the same as Facebook. It's the same as Twitter. It's the same as. We all opt into terms and conditions that if we really looked at them,
I read every word. I'm still reading the terms and conditions of Facebook that
you'll be reading the terms and conditions of Facebook for the rest
7
of your life.
years ago.
By the time we get to the end, they've changed it again.
Gary, I don't think
you managed to read the iPhone Have you managed to read the iPhone terms and conditions?
Actually, I have an iPhone 7 and I'm still reading them.
See, this is but this is the problem I have. People say, okay, if we're going to throw data issues at one company, we've got to throw them at all. Okay, so we have to throw them at all the drone manufacturers. Let's not just say one. Okay, DJI have been the largest to say they don't collect data, and I think some of the comments have been a mistake. I think personally they should have been a bit more bullish on it, frankly, and just said we have access to what you're sharing, what you don't share, and that, because in some ways they've tried to defend it, and I think, look, Facebook don't defend what they do. We all know Facebook collects huge amounts of data on us, yet Facebook do not sit there. They actually don't talk about it. They hide from it. Facebook has...
And for those of you watching this on Facebook, cheerio, because that's
hello.
probably the stream. It was great having you. Cheers.
Facebook have been involved in the largest data collection issue in history. They criminally went after people. Let's not pretend that they weren't, and that's an American company. So if we're going to throw the data thing, we have to throw it at everyone, if you get my drift, and I think credibility is a tough one. The problem is the data, the article is good in the sense of it's a positive, it's absolutely a positive article for the drone industry. It is massively safe. We all know it. I think the problem is we have a habit of looking for reasons to not listen to good stuff in the drone industry. We always try to almost talk it down in some ways. That's good news, but it comes from DJI. So if it had come from Skydio, would we have accepted it any differently?
No.
Do you know my point? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I know, and I agree with you. They made a huge mistake, and this goes right back to the poor PR, because you're 100% right. And this is where I think that the Chris Anderson model would have came in. Yeah, we're collecting data, but what we're doing is we're trying to develop some AI and other algorithms that are going to improve how our drones work and blah, blah, blah. And hey, we get it. If you want to opt out. We understand. If you don't, you're helping the community, and it's going to make it better for everyone, and the drones are going to be better. Instead of the PR guy here went full frontal on the Trump administration, to the point that the title of the story is you're effing crazy, okay, that they're collecting data. That'd be like me going to Korea, and I want to make TVs, and I'd say that the administration there is crazy and blah, 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 because I can't get a foothold in the Korean TV market or something. It's insane. It just doesn't even make any sense. So I think if they would have went back more like what you were talking about, Ian, they would have had more buy-in from the community. And a lot of people, just like on Facebook, would have said, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not doing anything really wrong. I'm just out here doing real estate photos or whatever else. And the people that are doing stuff wrong, they could have done something else. But go ahead.
Yeah. It is a valid point that I think they should have just been a bit more bullish and just said, yes, we're collecting these pieces of data and this is it and this is why, and that is the way our product works. And you accept, classic is that there's a huge amount of hoo-ha right now with the new Oculus Rift 2 goggles, because Facebook have bought Oculus and they are forcing you to have a Facebook account to be able to use the product. And in fact, if you get banned from Facebook, your hardware stops working, which is an interesting position to be in, to say the least.
Good job I haven't got one of those now, isn't it? Anyway.
When you get banned, Gary, you get banned.
These are it's kind of like the herd or flock too, and what you're talking about there. I mean, when people are collecting this data from the RID or whatever, it's kind of like a banned from the pub deal. Eventually, you're done. Dance card pulled, you're gone, and then you're sitting around with equipment you can't use. I see some most of us from Western countries or countries that have Western ideas, and we're all in the age group where there were like some freedom and personal responsibility and all the rest of that. It seems like it just goes out the window, and you're dealing with dad. Dad's taking the car keys, or dad's taking the whatever. I really don't like that. I don't like the idea that I'm monitored or I'm going to be controlled. And even if I prove myself to be trustworthy or law abiding, Maybe I made a mistake.
But it's not about the subversion of data isn't really about being legal or things like that. It's to make you buy that box of chocolate biscuits rather than that box of chocolate biscuits, and coerce all your. I think we leap to bigger outcomes than it really is, and that's but that in itself is not great. And what I feel sorry is for the youngsters now are having their habits and patterns of life tracked terribly, and they're going to be coerced into all sorts of car deals, all sorts of house deals, all sorts of big life decision money.
There's a classic of this is people with poor credit are shown adverts for borrowing more money at bad exchange rates. So what you're then doing is driving those people into more poor credit and bad credit situations. What we don't do as a society is give people an angle out. You get emails through for people, if someone's got a bad credit rating, you get this credit card with a 30 or 40%. Well, all that's going to do is give you more bad credit. You're never going to get out of the hole. And actually, this all really stems back. And if anyone was watching Westworld Series 3, I think it's Series 3 now it's on, and there's an AI which... you're judged. Your whole life is mapped out by this AI. Everything you are capable of doing has already been decided by this AI. You can never be more than it because it won't allow you. It's already predetermined your future. And, we are collecting data like that now. It's not just drones. It's Facebook. It's all.
Yeah.
That sounds like China.
Exactly. Or Drone 3D saying if kids don't play the game, they'll get tossed by the wayside. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the primary school children I teach, we're being very explicit's the wrong word, but direct in telling them be careful what they write. For about $30, you can buy a social report on somebody before you employ them, and it's a pull of social media and stuff like that. And it's 8 years. We've got 10-year-old kids there, so things that they say online now when they're 10 will go into their score that when they go to university might. And all the things that we would have said, you might have written on a bit of paper or something like that and thrown away or just swore or cussed or whatever, and punched a guy in the playground. It doesn't matter what we did in our youth. But unfortunately, the stuff that they're doing online is going to stick with them. And
so thanks to this stream, we're all in big trouble.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've said that. Thank God they didn't have Facebook when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to do the part.
They didn't have electricity when you were a kid, did they?
It's a good thing too.
Trust me, if they'd have had Facebook when I was a
the
kid,
rocks together, you'll get there in the end.
If there'd have been Facebook when I was a kid, man, I'd have been in some trouble.
But
as if you weren't anyway.
It was all good, clean fun. I look back. It was all clean. Nobody got permanently maimed or.
Yeah, it's only fun till the hooker breaks a leg.
No one's getting killed. No one's getting
and
hit.
You drop her off, and we don't know you. No,
that's the Deadpool scene. I'm not doing any harm, isn't it? That's the opening to the Deadpool film.
Well, I'm always a sober group, so I just take all the photos and I get you all later.
Yeah, but isn't it ridiculous that a group of older gentlemen have all decided that it's probably quite a bad idea, all this?
We're on it.
People, and I know we're on it, and it's happening to us right now. But how is it then that we are allowing this to happen to a younger generation? It's not beyond our ken to realise this is a bad thing.
Oh,
how is it still being allowed to happen?
I don't know how it's happening in the other countries, but here they're clamoring for it. You go to I like history, and so I'm looking for history videos on the YouTube or what. It's like a history is being erased. If it's not what I hate to say it, but Mr. Orwell was right on target, man. History is being erased. If it's not something that's woke, or it's not something that people want to talk about, or it's going away. It's just going away, and they don't want to know. And when you tell people about it or you talk to them about it, they're like, "Really? I didn't know anything about that." They don't want to know. What they want to know is what is kind of I want to say like here, like the BLM movement is very big now, and everybody wants equal rights and everything matters and all the rest of this, which is all fine and dandy. I'm all for it, but I think you're kind of you're losing sense of the rest of the world. They get on the Facebook, they're writing this stuff. Some of them get a little impassioned and talk about maybe doing some harm to someone or something. This is going to come back someday. And it's like, wow, you were talking about beating skulls in over here. We don't know.
It won't be someday. It will have been in your record that second you hit return.
Well, I mean, the someday when you go for the job, and who knows, maybe, or you go to a university, I'm going to go to some place that's not a Kennedy college, and they're like,
Well, the election is. Well, sorry, just going to say the election is polarizing that right now. You see a lot of the comments over the current situation you guys find yourself in, and I've read some of the stuff on Parler and others, and you just sit back and think, "Wow, okay, that's heavy stuff."
But people don't realize that they've agreed for that to be recorded. They don't realize that because it's in that small print, and.
Of course, here's an interesting question about Parler. If you take Parler, is it called Parler? It's gained a huge following as a result of the U.S. election. Massive.
You have to. There's only so many stories in the Naked City as far as humans are concerned, and there's only a few repeatable disasters that happen every so many years. But look. You got people, and they're young people that are in Congress that are talking about having enemies lists of people that supported Donald Trump. Okay. That's scary talk, So again, if you're whatever your thing is, and you're, are they going to come back 10 years ago and go, well, you supported Joe Biden, or you supported Trump, or you supported Obama, or you whatever, and now that
was named Adolf. The last guy that did that was named Adolf. So, yeah.
Well,
we can't be reminded of that.
Uncle Joe Stalin or this other clown down here in Cuba. I'm sorry, I don't like communism. I'll be the first to.
It's a good idea. It just doesn't work.
Well, it's like libertarianism. Okay, libertarianism sounds really good too, but it's really predicated on people being smart enough to handle the responsibility. So libertarianism right out the window. Communism sounds great, but we all read Animal Farm, right? They worked that poor horse to death.
Socialism. Never confuse communism with socialism.
You're from New Zealand. Don't give me, I love the New Zealand model. It's like, this country works fine. It's all good here. We don't have any COVID. We got that. We got the coloring book. It's, you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's middle of nowhere. It's controllable. I like New Zealand.
We don't allow political information.
Well, hang on. We've got it under control here, and we've got countries all around us that you can walk in. We've got the longest walk in the world. You can walk 22,000 kilometers to the top of Russia from here, so we're quite connected. But
California we're aspiring to be South Africa Junior here in California, but no, I mean it's a little bit of a different model. And socialism, I would think, in countries that have smaller populations could possibly work. More, let's say,
Cuba.
Yeah, it's not working. It didn't really work there, but it could. I mean, I've been to Norway. Norway is great, but on the other hand, they have oil, and they have like $800,000 in the bank for every citizen. That's a pretty start in life.
They have EVs now. They don't need the oil anymore because by 2025, you won't be able to sell any petrol-powered car or gas-powered cars.
Well, this is true.
They don't mind. They still have the oil, and they'll sell it to you gladly.
And we're offshoring the climate change. That's the thing, it's like the hypocrisy gets, okay, so we're not going to have oil burning cars here, but we're going to sell that oil to China, who's just going willy-nilly, doing whatever they want to do. This is probably getting me on a list. I'm going to be honest.
Trent's made quite a valid point there.
Flying cars.
Everything's great.
Bloody flying cars. My God.
Well, just
with drones. We don't talk about drones.
Well, it's a bigger issue. We are hitting bigger issues.
We drone. We don't talk about them.
Yes.
Well, no, these are bigger issues, I think, that are tied in, with the information and the data collection and all the rest of that. And, and the social things and whatnot, and being cut off from your technology or your, let's say what you're doing. I mean, again, if you get cut off from your hardware and that is your business, that's going to put you in a tough spot. So
what do you mean by that? Sorry, I didn't understand. What do you mean if you get cut off on your hardware?
Like Ian was talking about, like with the Oculus and the Facebook. But
okay, yeah.
If the FAA or Civil Aviation Authority pulls your ticket, you're out of business.
Well, that is the possibility with the US proposed, because remember, you had to be logged into a USS, which was a provider. And if they decided you weren't allowed for, say, some strange reason, and they remotely booted you, then your aircraft would not take off and you wouldn't be allowed to fly.
The other thing, did anybody notice that they had a whole list of the service providers, and DJI was on it and a few other foreign companies, and they quietly removed all of the foreign companies. And that was one of the FOIA requests that I made. It's have these companies been vetted? Do you know for sure that, are you giving them data that could be of national security? I mean, countries that have air forces and whatnot, and how the NAS works and how the military gets whatever. Oh no, we checked it all out. It's great. Everybody's vetted, blah, blah, blah. And then they silently, quietly removed foreign companies from that list. And that goes back to the RID thing and the test that they did, or the demonstration they did at Quantico, the FBI thing. Who, and this is one of the questions I asked the FAA, they totally have gone silent on me. They don't want to answer any questions. Who was responsible for DJI's demonstration, vetting? I mean, who, they don't want to talk about it. But I want to talk about it. I want to know what's going on. I mean, how did who were you discussing this with? What protocols are we dealing with here? How's this going to work? Who's got my data? And the other thing with the data collection thing is, again, if I'm in business and I'm doing mining, oil and gas, whatever else, and they can collect my data, because you can't tell me they can't collect your data if this system's all working together. So is there industrial espionage avenue here?
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. And why do you think that? Oh, careful what I say. There's a few businesses have sort of stood up little divisions ready and waiting for that to, as part of your low cost USS provision, or whatever it was, Enterprise. Part of your low cost version is, we'll use a little bit of your data if you don't mind, and you'll get this cheaper if not free. You won't mind, or we'll let you have this service. And that is, so I know some of them have been talking about having commercial services bolted off the data that's coming through their system.
What do you think compliance will be like with remote ID, though? I ran a poll on my community tab, and 1,400 people responded. And of those 1,400, only 3% said that they'd ever been asked to show proof of registration when they've been flying. And 30% said that they chose not to register. So that's a non-compliance of 30%. And a lot of people have said that now the renewals are coming around, they're not going to renew because they've never been asked to show rego and they don't think it's right. And so I think that non-compliance is going to increase over time. And I think if remote ID comes in the USA, a lot of people are going to say, no, not interested, just going to do my own thing and keep out of trouble, but I'm not going to bother.
Well, that, and, it was sold as like every car has a license plate on it. This is true. I was a victim of a hit and run, and went to the police department before the riot started and said, hey, I got pictures, the license plate number, and they hit my car and I got to pay all this money or whatever. Nobody's doing anything. The other thing is the license plate doesn't report like this RID thing is going to report or be a repository of information. It's an apples and orange argument.
And report where you as the operator has stood with your $100,000 camera and $200,000 machine. You stood over there. That's where he is. He's over there. Like, if you want that, he's over there. And
that's
clear. And people don't get that. Oh, well, I am ranting now, but they don't seem to have twigged that it's in the clear. It's got to be broadcast in the clear. So whoever's got the receipt, there's going to be. Well, that's when we're gonna quickly make our Catch That Drone Guy app, aren't we? And make a fortune selling that, so people can go out and catch drone people. That's how we can make our money.
Well, there's that issue, and then the other thing too is if this is reporting. I mean, here in California, and I don't know, where you guys live or whatever, but I even told all my students, hey, you've got to use the buddy system, because people come up and you're flying the drone and they call you a pervert and they want to kick your ass while you're flying. It's kind of hard to keep someone off.
That's just a normal day for you, though, isn't it, Patrick? I mean, how can you detach that from your normal day-to-day living?
Well, it's not quite that bad yet. I don't know. Maybe, something I don't know, but no, it's not quite that bad yet. And I've never really had that happen personally, but I know several people that's happened to. And then the person that was doing the visual observing had it. So I think that's another issue that I don't think was really that well thought out. And then especially if you have minors or kids, someone could come and steal their equipment. They could beat them up, whatever else. Don't think that was well thought out. Again, I think that even going after the hobbyist, to me, it's just criminal.
Yeah,
that they went after the hobbyist. They just talk about chilling the future of aviation.
Well, we've solved.
But there are so many more hobbyists, and they need a cash cow to pay for all this tech. I mean, if it costs the UK £4 million to put a Raspberry Pi on a bedside table, imagine what it's going to cost to build this infrastructure for the UTM.
Well, who's going to pay?
Miners problem because we've banned them to stop them flying. So we got rid of that issue of them having any problems, because you've got to be. I'm not sure. How old is it in America now? Is it 16 or 18 to fly?
I think it's 16. But here that's another thing. Okay, so we had the safety deal. Remember, we had to repeal 330.
Yeah,
we had to repeal 336 because it was just totally. Yeah, it was it was willy nilly, and we were going to have an RC test. But still don't have it. Here, you want to go one further? I hate to name names, but so I don't know if I'll name names. But anyway, the AMA's latest push is to hire a guy that used to work at the FAA that created this problem. And the guy emails me and says, oh, well, I'm trying to help them out. And I asked, are you doing it pro bono or are you charging them? Because if you're not doing it pro bono, it almost seems to me like you created a problem that you're here now getting paid to clean up.
Beautiful.
And that's not
beautiful.
Right.
It's great. No, it's great work if you can get it.
Oh my God! But that's circular economy.
Yeah.
It bugs me. It's the same deal with the dude that was the administrator. He's working for, a counter UAS, which they sent us the press release. I don't know if you saw that, Gary, because I fired back. That dude's already done more counter UAS work working at the FAA than he could ever help you do here. But, it's like you off ramp and you get these jobs. You've created all of these issues. And as far as I'm concerned, the FAA has created many of these issues for themselves that are just things to slow things down forever.
James in the comment, where the public have the right to privacy in their back gardens. I think that was a camera thing that was solved like in 1900, wasn't it? There's years old rules and regulations, isn't it, that if you are outside, you have no expectation of privacy?
I think they proved that with the mafia.
In this country, you've got expectation of privacy if you could not normally be seen from the street. So if you're in your backyard, you expect to be private, but there's no expectation of privacy in a public place, which makes me wonder with like Google Earth and that, with all the images in people's backyards, what are your rights there? It's probably why they fuzz people's faces out, but it still doesn't change the fact that someone was there. And if that someone's your privacy has been invaded.
Well, how many homes have been, robbed doing a little, gathering a little intel on Google Earth first?
Yeah, drones make that so much easier. I find it. Google Earth out of date. If you want the up-to-date info, go to Bing.
I don't use Google Earth anymore. I simply just go straight for the Mavic now.
Yeah, and that new one's really good because it's really small and you can hardly hear it. Yeah, it's great, that new one. And that's the one that's destroyed Skydio's business anyway. Which, I don't know, what's the scuttlebutt you're hearing then about Skydio over there, Patrick? Come on, you must have
here's, so we have the blue UAS thing going, right?
SUAS, Patrick, SUAS.
And we have that. We have the 5 people and, or 5 companies, and a few of them showed up and they did the demo and it's all good. But I don't think that anybody's really clear on like what this made in USA stuff is. or how much, if it's all Chinese components and it's USA manufactured and it's USA software. And, it's another thing that really gets my goat, man. And probably talked about it before, but all of these drone stars that have gone supernova in the past, Airware, all that, we've got software.
I've forgotten them.
Software, and it's like, and I heard that from the CEO of Skydio too. He told me they have software. I've seen it fly. It flies great, whatever. I've heard it has a couple of issues, whatever else, and that's fine. The other scuttlebutt I'm hearing is they need money, and they're actually either looking for money or to be acquired. I don't know, but let me say this: they cannot deliver. You can try and order, but they can't deliver. And software is one thing. Setting up a manufacturing process, especially here in the United States, it's a total different kettle of fish. I don't see how you're going to compete with the Chinese on that one. I mean, that one's just kind of, I don't know where you guys live, but this is kind of a joke. I mean, it's just an apples and oranges comparison again. They're trying to manufacture something here in the United States. Environmental laws,
I'm sorry,
labor laws.
Imagine
Imagine if DJI acquired them.
Yeah, imagine if DJI acquired them. But my little two-penneth there was, again, on the LinkedIn where I get riled the most. Somebody pointed out to me that they'd had an order for 5,000 units, and surely that makes them a massive company. I think we heard many years ago that DJI was putting out more than that many units a day before Christmas.
Yeah.
So that an order of 5,000, yes, it's a lot. It would be a lot of units for our small code company to put together, but for a big company, nah.
Yeah, it's interesting about the manufacturing, because if you look, if we take some of America, the US's most successful companies, let's just use the Apple name again, they manufacture in China. There's a reason they do that. Dell, HP, all massive American computer companies. And don't get me wrong, the computer industry does center around the region over there. But look, if we're going to sit here and say we've got to have drones made in the UK, yet close to every single laptop and phone on the market is manufactured outside the US, then it's no wonder they keep failing, because it's a recipe that doesn't work for mass tech. We've already proved it doesn't work for mass tech.
I'm not sure of that. Sorry. With all the level of automation, it's a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
So
again,
unless someone wants to invest the every capital initiative that you must have, the startup capital to get all the machinery and all the lines in place, but no one wants to do that on this climate.
So
why
which
does
big American company doesn't manufacture in China? Intel, how are they doing?
They manufacture everywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting. But okay, Apple could. I'm going to lose my camera in a minute. I can see the battery light flashing. I'll have to sort the battery. I'll put the good skin on this time so I look a little bit better just for you, Bruce. But no, here's a question. Apple have all of the money in the world, literally close to more money than anyone else.
All of the money.
All of the money they have, yet they're still not setting up fully automated production outside of some very specialist. They did the Mac Pro in the US, if I remember. So there's proof here that mass manufactured product is still done in China, and I don't necessarily agree with it. I think there's a very good argument to say Apple should be putting that money back in the US pocket. They're an American company. Even if it costs them more, they can afford to do it. But they've proved that manufacturing within the US doesn't work for big products.
But hasn't Foxconn just announced they're opening a big plant in the USA?
There are certain states that are cheaper that don't have, let's say, the labor laws and environmental regulation that California does. I mean, if you want to open a manufacturing in California, you either have to be mentally defective or a drug addict. It's just so expensive. I mean, I've had a corporation for years, and it's funny as people go, "Oh, greedy corporations don't pay taxes." That is exactly why you have a corporation, is not to pay taxes. You're looking to put all your money invested back in. If you wanted to try and build computers in this state, you just, there's no way you would make any profit. The other thing here in America is if you look at the profit margins at Apple products, they're making huge margins. It used to be in the 60s, hey, you made 5, 6, 7%, 8% profit or whatever. That's okay. Now everybody wants to make hundreds, thousands of percent profit. And the greed, one of the 7 deadly sins is an issue.
There's one to come back out. Sorry, I'll put that in your environment.
Yeah, they did well. You know why they did well? Let's talk. You want to talk
show in town? He's showing town. Lots of dodgy contracts after you.
Exactly. Not only that, they are operating in what I like to call, it's like the animal preserve. You go by the animal preserve and the rhino's over there and it's fat and happy. The animals off the preserve got to go kill their own food. It's a harder life. AeroVironment was selling, basically, if you look at their designs like Puma or even the Raven, the Puma is an old RC design. McCready was a RC guy.
Yeah.
And they had another thing called, what was the name of that? Access 5. Now, some of the people in here probably will remember the NASA program, the Access 5, where they had the $110 million, and there were the companies that got the money to go develop some drones. And AeroVironment was one of them. And it saved AeroVironment. AeroVironment was a green energy company. And that wasn't really working out. They were doing electric vehicles and blah, blah, blah. And the drones did work out. Then we had the terrorist attack and the war on terror. War on Terror for DOD contractors. It was making its own gravy. It was cost plus. Doesn't work? That's okay. Bring it over here and we'll pay you to fix it. There goes the Christmas cards. But that's what was happening with that. And even during the period of time that they were, let's say, making all of these DOD quality drones, people in the RC world were making equipment that had the same capabilities. Someday, Gary, you're going to have to do, I was thinking we should do like a history show. People believe that there were no autopilots before 3D robotics, that people didn't even know what to do drones or anything before 3D robotics, which is total nonsense. There were people that had a lot of good capabilities, and AeroVironment was just the right place, right time, had advocates, had people in Congress. They were doing that Helios over there, and that was a big boondoggle. Let's come back. Yeah. So it's boondoggle after boondoggle after boondoggle. People were getting money from the government. If you're getting money from the government, it's a good game if you can get it. If you can't get it, then you're on the outside with no markets trying to produce drones. We've talked about that ad nauseum.
Definitely. When did they switch? There's the man of the Switchblade about, I want to say 4 years ago, something like that. That's what I want to say, but that's just a number I'm pulling out the head. What was the question? The Switchblade. When did they? It was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, but it might. I think it was in the works from before that, though, because I remember when they hatched the idea, kind of laughing at that. Is that something somebody's going to want back?
Well, there was one of the farmers. I asked, they had them all the ones on the stand were painted white. I said, "Oh, you're entering the civil market." And he was quite annoyed at me because I think they deliberately did that to just make their civil push by painting them all white.
Well, remember that at Farnborough, I asked him if I could buy one. I said, "Do you guys have financing, or do you take bad checks?"
Oh, we both gave him abuse there, did we?
We did. And they were like, "Well, who are you and why do you want one?" I'm like, "Hey, man, it's the future. I'm ready to buy."
That's right. Look, we're going into rant mode, and look, we're well over 2 hours. So it must be time for me to go to bed. It must be time for me to go. So before we go, as I traditionally do, was there any other big stories we've seen this week before we go? Going once, going twice. And with that, I'll say thank you very much to you, wherever you might be in the world. Thank you for the care and the community that you offer these old people on this channel. And we look forward to seeing you again at 2100 GMT next week. Maybe if you're crazy enough, and maybe we'll see when I do one of the little lunchtime things that I'm doing every day now. Anyway, look after yourselves. See you next week. Thanks very much, chaps. Cheers, eh?